Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lindsay, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Katie and I will be running this session on CK-12 and Google Classroom. We're so glad that you've joined us. Before we start, let's make sure everyone is comfortable with the Zoom webinar platform. You should see two different options on your Zoom screen, one for Q&A and one for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK-12, please post it in the Q&A window. The chat window is a place for community conversation. You're already doing a great job with this. We would love for you all to continue to introduce yourselves. If you're an educator, feel free to share where you live and the subject that you teach. Just make sure in that chat window that you're sending any general posts to all panelists and attendees. If you don't select all panelists and attendees, then it's just the CK-12 team that gets to see your message. I do want to mention as well that this webinar is being recorded and it will be available at ck12.org/webinars within 24 hours if you need to revisit it or if you want to share it with colleagues. We have created a resource page for this webinar session. You can find it at the following tinyurl.com. tinyurl.com/CK12 Google 2020. We'll put this in the chat window right now for all of you, and just know that it's a resource that you can use to follow along during this presentation, or it can just be saved to your desktop or printed at a later date if you would like as well. Given that this is a short webinar, we're going to jump right into the content. As we go, feel free to post any questions you have for us in the Q&A window for the CK-12 team to answer. But let me go ahead and bring on Katie to lead today's session.
Thanks, Lindsay. So we're going to go through a couple things today. The first is what CK-12 offers. So our Flexbook 2.0 and related modalities. We'll talk about what they are and all the ones that can be assigned to your class in Google. We'll also talk about the Google integration, so your options to assign a class versus sharing resources, and then how to see progress and insights from within Google Classroom.
Our newest Flexbook 2.0 lessons include text, often with embedded multimedia and questions, and corresponding practice or customized quiz. Other assignable resources, which can be found in the related modalities for a 2.0 lesson or individually across our site, include videos, simulations, Plix interactives, and real-world applications. We cover many of these in depth in other webinar sessions, but let's talk a little bit about assigning versus sharing those resources.
So you're going to see many options to share content to Google Classroom via email or on social media using that green share a plane or the share option within a Flexbook lesson. But note that this is going to simply add a link as an announcement or post or question in your Google class. This will not allow you to see any scores or work students have done. Instead, it just we're transferring that. It's like copying and pasting the URL into your class. So if you do want to see reports and insights, be sure to use the assign or assign to class options across CK-12. And then when the pop-up comes up, pick Google Classroom. You do not need a separate class in CK-12. That causes confusion. Simply use the assign functionality and then pick Google and connect to your Google Classroom to send the assignments there. From there, you'll be able to see progress. Students will be able to access the work straight from Google Classroom, complete it, and turn it in right there. So the only thing that happens on CK-12 is assigning or customizing, and then everything after that happens in Google Classroom.
When you assign a Flexbook 2.0 lesson to Google Classroom, you are automatically assigning any matching practice or quiz attached to that lesson. Within Google, you'll see a score based on a goal of 10 correct for practice or a % correct for a quiz. All videos, interactives, real-world applications, and lessons without practice or quizzes attached will show up as full or no credit within Google. If you open the class report by clicking on the submission link with any practice quiz in Google, you'll see the % for the practice quiz, along with options to see more details and a check mark for other modalities. If you assign a Flexbook 2.0 lesson, you can access our insights for that by opening up the assignment using the same link students would in Google, then clicking on the toolbar and insights. From there, you'll see the time spent, a histogram of that time, a skill level for attached practice or percent for a quiz, and engagement for new assignments. As we continue to release more insights, you'll see even more recommendations and suggestions for paragraphs and questions to review or suggestions for students. Okay, I think that's the introduction that we needed to get out to you today. Let's kick it over to Katie to really explore this Google Classroom integration.
Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm going to go ahead and swap that, and hopefully you can see the CK-12 homepage on here. This is the first homepage you'd log into if you were a student. If you were logged in as a teacher account, you would see this page. And so the first thing you'd want to do is just kind of find your content on CK-12. So if you are teaching middle or high school math or science, I recommend that you go down to math by level or science here and click on any of those links, and it will open up that content in one of our newest Flexbook 2.0 lessons. And so I'm going to show you right away the option to share. So this little green share plane in the bottom right. If I click share on Google Classroom, remember that that is sharing. And I can choose my class, connect it accordingly, choose my action, create an assignment, ask a question, make an announcement, create material. This is not going to be valid. It's not going to share the assignment and report pieces. So you want to make sure that you're just using this share functionality to ask a question or make an announcement. So that's one thing to just keep in mind. Sharing this resource is simply sharing a link. And actually that's not a bad option for sharing the whole Flexbook. So let's go ahead and share this Flexbook. We're going to make an announcement to my summer class. And we're going to say go. And then we can say, check out our class Flexbook. Post. So that's going to go ahead and share this book. Now my students have a great book within Google Classroom. Notice it worked seamlessly straight to Classroom, and I was good to go. From there, I can go into a particular section or lesson. So let's see, maybe on characteristics of life. From here, you'll see a start screen where you can see a bunch of different options. Lindsay was talking about those different modalities or ways to learn. So there's a Plix interactive, that's a little brain icon, a world or real world application, and 3 different videos that are also related to this lesson. But if I go ahead and I click start, this will bump me into my Flexbook 2.0 lesson. And from here, I'll see the content. We have text included in here. We have some different images, a video included, another video. Some of our chemistry and physics or earth science books have embedded interactives, even more than our life science. So you'll see different options as you go through there. And I can click this assign button. So once again, I'm not using the CK-12 class feature if I'm using Google Classroom. I'm just going to click on the Google Classroom link. And then I'm going to pick my class to work with. And I am required to put a due date on here. So let's say we're going to make this due on the 10th. They have until Monday to go through and do this particular piece. If you're working in a Flexbook 2.0 lesson, you have the option to post date an assignment. So I set it due on the 10th, which means I have these dates to choose from to post date it. I'm going to keep today as the start date so that we can actually see it when we go over to Classroom. But for 2.0 lessons, you have the ability to post date. For other stuff, that's not yet available. So here, I'm going to go ahead and I can change this. I'm just going to make a note that this is a 2.0 with practice. So I can easily find that in there. And I can put a read through the lesson and do the practice before clicking turn in. And then I can go ahead and assign that. And that's going to assign that to my summer 2020 class. So if I wanted to go over to that class, I would just open up my summer 2020 class. I'm going to refresh this page because I just made a new post. And you'll see that I just posted this characteristics of life assignment. Before that, I made the announcement with the whole Flexbook. So this is a great resource for students, but this is the actual assignment. I can see that I have 4 students in my class. It's been assigned, but no one submitted it yet. And they have in the instructions the direct link to go to CK-12 to access that particular assignment. So that worked really well. Let's go back to CK-12 for a second and talk about assigning some other types of modalities. So in my toolbar, I will see related content, and you'll see the same set of resources you saw on that start page. So if I went and I opened up my Plix Interactive, this is a customized CK-12 interactive that we've created for you. It includes something that they're going to interact with, a description, challenge questions they can work their way through, and I'm going to use this bright orange button at the top to assign that to my class. Once again, I'm going to just make a note that this is a Plix, and then I'm going to pick Google Classroom, choosing my summer 2020 class and the required due date. Let's have it due on the same day of the 10th. And that has now been assigned. Now for some of the other types of resources, such as this real world application, if you want to assign it when you open it from here, you're going to just click on the assign option here, and then you'll see an assign to class option on the top left. So I can do the same thing, my real world application, assign it to Google, pick my class, and pick my due date. So regardless of where you are on our site, the assign functionality works to assign a lesson or modality to your CK-12 class. One note, this practice here is the broad practice on fields in life sciences. When I assigned this lesson, so let's go back to this characteristics of life lesson, and there's attached practice in this lesson that you can view as a teacher. You can preview what the students would be getting. This is tailored specifically to go with this lesson on characteristics of life and not the broader topic across our site. And know that when I assign this lesson, I'm assigning the content of this lesson and the attached practice. And that attached practice is what's going to give me the grade in my Google Classroom. So we just showed you how to create and find content within a Flexbook 2.0. There are a number of other options. You can use our search bar. So I could search for the water cycle, and I can search within this Flexbook or across all of CK-12. So let's actually search for it across all of CK-12. And then this search allows you to see content from CK-12 has made. I can filter by grade over here. I can filter by type of resource that I want here. And let's say CK-12 didn't have what you were looking for. Maybe you're teaching an English class and we have more math and science content. So you could go over and click on the Community Contributed tab and check out what's there. That's a great example if I just type in literature, where there's some content that you might see in CK-12, but you're going to find a lot more that the users have created and republished on our site. So all sorts of options. You can also find content that you've customized or created in your library, or anything that you've used the add to library functionality, and you can do the same thing. So if I like this scientific notation read, I can open it up and I can use the assign to class functionality here, which would just assign this lesson. Or I can go back and I can open up my book, which opens up a full Flexbook in here. And then I could go to an individual lesson, or I could use the choose functionality here and choose assign from here. Once again, always picking Google Classroom if that's what you're using. Picking your class, and then this option allows me to pick more than one concept to work with. So here, I think scientific notation is a little further on. So we have a scientific notation option here. I can pick a date that it's due, and I could even pick the next one, descriptive statistics, and make that due the following day. And I can assign multiple sections from the table of contents within a Flexbook, noting that each one of these is going to assign the lesson with any attached practice or quiz. And that's all set. Now, a few other things while we're still on CK-12. You can explore other subjects across here. For science, K-5, we have text readers. For math, K1 through 5, we have videos in practice. You'll see some content that our partners have worked with and we've surfaced to give you an idea of what else is around here. So go ahead and explore the different types of resources we have. Or you can use our Explore menu, which will help you find content that other schools have made So for example, if I click on a school here and I switch over to, let's say, California, there's a county there that's created a number of resources. So let's go ahead and pull that up down to Merced County. And it doesn't have to be a book that CK-12 has made. So let's say you want to use their grade 3 math book. You are welcome to do the same thing. You can choose and assign from here, or you can go into any lesson. You'll see here some related content that they've added. And here you can assign the lesson with the attached practice using the assign button at the top, or even the assign to class option here, both of which will give you options to go ahead and pull from up there. So that's how you make assignments from CK-12. Let's go back into Google Classroom for a minute and talk about some options for editing those. So I've posted the scientific notation one, descriptive statistics, real world applications, PLIX, noting that when I assign multiple assignments at the same time, I didn't have any options for specific instructions or things like that. So I can always go back in. So let's go ahead and open this assignment. You can see here, we have different pieces, we have instructions, and I can edit this assignment once I'm in Google Classroom. So I could change this, and I actually think that this one is a 2.0 lesson with a quiz attached to it, because I know that I swapped that practice for a quiz in a previous lesson, and I could add directions. From here, I have the choice to pick all students, or I could, within Google Classroom, deselect some students and say, Ryan doesn't need to do this, and Katie doesn't need to do this, but these other two people do need to actually review this content. So you could pick that. You can change your point value to, let's say, 50 points from here. And I can pick a topic. So right now I have 2 topics already. We're gonna create a topic on physical science. And I can add it to there, and I can go ahead and I can save that. So once in Google, I can make some edits and changes for that piece. I could even update the due date if I wanted, those particular students. And if I went and I looked at the class as a whole and that classwork, you'll see that that one that I just updated is in physical science. Ones that I've created before are in a topic on translations, chemical properties of matter, and I could choose to create other topics within Google and adjust and group those assignments accordingly. So create assignments coming from CK-12, update and edit those assignments in Google Classroom, and then how do you see your scores and reports? So if I go ahead to grades, I just made all of these assignments right now. So there's no grades, there's no work that's been done. But here you can see work that's already been done across the platform. So Katie, Ryan, and our Jumpstart student account have done some work. Carl just joined, so he doesn't have any grades submitted yet. But those grades are based on the point value. So 20 points here, 100 points here. Noting that our practice is based on a goal of 10 correct, and our quiz is a clean assessment percentage score. Anything else is going to be full or no credit. So for this simulation, you're going to either see nothing or 50. You're going to see 20 or nothing for that real-world application. Here it's out of 50, so nothing or 50 for that PLIX, nothing or 10 for that video, etc. So keep that in mind, that you get full or no credit for our learning modalities and actual variations of scores for quizzes and practice. If I pick any assignment that has a quiz or practice, I can click on the View Submission link within that grade report and open up a class report that CK-12 has on the back end. Now, notice I just accessed this from Google Classroom, so it pulled my class information with it. I did not access it from CK-12. I pulled that grade from the classroom. This has 3 students in this class. If you remember, if I go back here for a second to my gradebook, Carl hasn't done a single assignment, so CK-12 doesn't know that he's been added to this summer 2020 class. Once he does his first assignment on CK-12, he will start showing up in this class report, but until then, it's just gonna be anyone that's actually started a single assignment on CK-12. And here you can see the quiz that I picked has 88%. Katie did this twice. So attempt number 1, she got a 75. Number 2, 87.5. You can actually see the questions and answers that were done, the time spent, all of those pieces. For real world application, You just get the start date and when it was turned in. For a practice, all 3 of these students reached that goal of 10 correct, but they have different skill levels. So Katie's proficient. It took her 2 minutes to do this, and she got 10 out of 13 questions right. All the easy, 6 of the medium, and 1 of the 3 hard that she did. Now, you can see both the correct answer and the incorrect answer that they put if included there, but notice that answers to missed questions are available to students after the due date has passed. So a student would only see this incorrect pre-image note, not the correct image, until after the assignment was due, unless you chose to toggle that on when you were making an assignment. If I click on Ryan, you can see that he's also proficient, 10 out of 14 questions, and the Jumpstart student is developing. So 10 out of 13 questions, but some more medium incorrect and actually got the hard one right. So as they work their way through, that skill level will adjust and you'll be able to see that information. Now, if you ever see a red mark here and your student says, but I did that assignment, go ahead and check it on CK-12 and see if it says needs to turn in. That means that Ryan actually did that quiz, but never clicked the turn in button at the top of that lesson to submit it to you. So he just needs to go back and click that turn in button and he'll be all set. So that was the general class report, and you can export this to a CSV or simply use the scores as they have been put within the particular grade report on Google Classroom, because that is where it will transfer to if you assigned it to Classroom, students accessed it through Classroom, and they turned it in there. Now, if I pick any of these particular assignments, this same link right here, this sign-in link, if you happen to be looking at student work, will open that same class report. So that's an option there. We can go ahead and close that because we already went through it. But the key thing is in the any assignment, if I click on the link, just like a student would do to open a particular lesson, if it's a 2.0 lesson, we also have our newest insights available for you. So in this case, it's going to open this lesson. This one has a quiz attached, so I actually customize this Flexbook and swap that practice for a quiz. And you can learn all about that in our customizing options. But here you can see in the bottom corner, there's that view quiz option. Looks like this lesson's been updated since then. I can go to the latest version. Not much was changed there as we went through. And I can click on that toolbar and click on Insights in the toolbar. The toolbar is your friend. You get all sorts of great things there. Because I came from Google Classroom, it pulled my class information, that summer 2020 information. I can click on my name here, this Katie, and you can see the time spent on the lesson, where that time was spent all the way through. Looks like she went through, did some stuff, checked out the video, and then just kind of flew through the end and tried the quiz. You can also see at the top the score and an engagement. So because that video was accessed and worked with, she gets a higher engagement score than she would if she just skimmed through it and didn't bother to click on anything. If there's interactives or if she took notes, that helps add to that engagement piece. If you see 0%, most likely didn't bother to take any time to go through any content and just jumped straight to the assignment at the end. Ryan here has the time on lesson, but remember he forgot to turn this assignment in. So he's missing his quiz score and the engagement isn't set until that turn in point. So at that point in time, we'd get to see that engagement score as well. And then the Jumpstart student got 100 on that quiz, high engagement, time on lesson, took the time to read through it, understand the material, and do that quiz. I'm going to open one other assignment within here. So if we look at this classwork for a second and we pick a 2.0 with practice, same deal. You can click on the link here or within the assignment itself. As long as it's the link that you use to assign, it's being accessed from Google Classroom the same way your students would access it by clicking on it. And then you can see in that toolbar those insights. So let's go ahead and open those insights from here. And we can see in a quick view, once again, time on lesson and engagement, as well as the skill level score. Remember, think of practice as a homework assignment. They completed it, so they got 100%, but they wanted to kind of get a sense of how they understood it. So proficient, also proficient, developing, looks like they all had a pretty high engagement score, interacting with different components. It's based on the number of interactive options within there. And so then you'd say, okay, this last student spent 17 minutes going through this lesson, and you went in there and actually hit the different pieces, but maybe isn't quite understanding it completely at this point in time. So keep that in mind. Those are the different ways to access class reports and then the class insights from there. So Lindsay, how are we doing on questions?
Well, our team has been busy answering a lot of them. Katie, it's just, I think people are feeling like this is a lot of information, and just a reminder, we are recording this and it will be on our webinars page probably by this evening. So if you need to revisit this and rewatch some of what you did, you're welcome to. But a lot of the questions coming into Q&A, Katie, are kind of a recap of, can you show us again how to find insights? Can you show us again how to find reports? So I don't know if you just want to do some kind of high level summarizing of what you've already covered.
Sure. Let's see if we can crack them all out in a little bit. So I saw a couple things on, the first thing you'd want to do is go to CK-12, click Assign, and then pick Google Classroom. And if I click that, I can then pick my due date accordingly. That Show Answers, if I toggle that on, would allow students to see the correct answer even before the due date. So it's defaulted off. But if they were doing a self-study and you didn't care, you're welcome to turn that on so they can review right away, even before it's due. But that's how you would make an assignment. I've already assigned this, so we're going to leave it as is. So make an assignment, pick Google Classroom. Once in Google Classroom, you can open up any assignment. You can edit this assignment, reset your students if you don't want it to go to all students, reset point values or due dates or topics or anything you want from there. And then there are two components for grades. So one is if your students access this content and submit their work, those grades will automatically show up in Google Classroom. You don't have to do anything to get those to show up. They got full credit out of this, full credit out of that. This is a practice. They all got full credit here, 88% on here, and 100 on this one. So all of those are available within there. You can click on the View Submission link here, or if I go into the lesson itself, any CK-12 logo link right here, and that will open up your class report. And that's where you can get all sorts of extra information on any student that's done at least one practice. So remember that Carl's not showing up here because he hasn't started any of the work there. For insights, you'd click on instructions and click on the same link the students would click. Go ahead and open that up. And then once in that 2.0 lesson, these are available for 2.0 lessons. So that's where it is. You would then click on the toolbar in the top right. So that's that little grid in the top right here. And then on insights. And we're going to continue to launch more and more insights. So keep an eye out for our newest one right now is engagement, and you'll see more as we continue to launch those pieces.
Katie, well, everybody's still typing in questions. I know we kind of anticipated this being a half-hour webinar with staying on for questions. So I'm going to take the screen back from you and give some kind of wrap-up information for everybody. And I'll give you a chance to look at the Q&A window and what you're going to come back on and demo. But let's just cover a few additional things here. The first thing that I want to remind you is that we have a certified educator program, and we're actually relaunching it this month. We're really excited about it. It's going to be fully on demand, and you can complete it on your own schedule. So if you're interested in learning more about our totally free, self-paced CK-12 certified educator program, go to ck12.org/certified, and there's a pre-registration button that's up right now where you can sign up to make sure you're the first to hear. But in the next week or so, you should be getting information from us regarding the August launch of the new CEP. Earlier we mentioned that we have a session resource page for you. We put the link to this resource in the chat window earlier, but here it is again. It is a tinyurl.com/CK12 Google 2020. And if you're joining the Certified Educator program, it will be found in the course Flexbook. Something that might be helpful to you is that we've recently created a number of short, kind of 1 to 3 minute videos to help you with key skills on CK-12. These include customizing content, creating assignments, using Google Classroom, and more. So feel free to check out those along with any other offerings on our YouTube channel. We'll keep adding to that playlist, so check it out if you ever need a quick lesson or refresher. Our newest webinar is called CK-12, a solution for flexible learning, and you can join us for that next Wednesday if you want some just more general information about how to get going with CK-12, or later this month as we're offering it weekly. If any of you are in districts that also use Canvas or Schoology, feel free to share those upcoming webinars with your colleagues. You can sign up for any of these webinars or check out the archived recordings at ck12.org/webinars. There you'll even see one called Student Speak, which we did recently with a panel of students talking about their experiences with school during COVID. Okay, so we want to thank everybody for joining us today. Let me assure you that you will be supported by the CK-12 team. We're happy to help you, so send us an email at any time to support@ck12.org. Also, don't forget to let your social networks know about CK-12. We're on all the socials as CK-12 Foundation. So that's kind of the scheduled programming for today. So if you need to jump off this webinar, go ahead and do that. But looks like there's a lot of questions still in Q&A. So our team's going to continue to answer a lot of those via text, and then we're going to see if we can do some of those live as well. So Katie, have you had a chance to see what we need to review for everybody?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. First of all, at no point in the last 30 minutes of working did I have to use any of this CK-12 class functionality. So you're not going to create classes on CK-12. That would just duplicate stuff and make it really confusing because the scores would show up in different places. So you just want to always use that assign straight to Google Classroom and then use your Google Class. So keep that in mind there. We had a question on turning in work after the due date. So here's an example class report where you can see that on the right, some of these have actually been submitted late. So it says 3 days and 16 hours late. Just note that that is based on the original assignment due date that you set when you made that assignment. So just keep that in mind kind of as you go through. If you update that assignment, you might or might not see that coming straight from Google Classroom, but they do have the ability to submit that work once after the due date and they can still get that score. But you can always see when they turned it in. And then in some cases, you may actually see the late piece here. But because that doesn't work backwards from Google Classroom, it may be a little funky kind of working from that piece. But hopefully that answered your question about being late. We actually had a couple people ask about seeing what it looks like from the student side. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a student class and show you what that looks like. So here is this Jumpstart student account. You can see that we have a couple different assignments due shortly. And some of these newer assignments we actually haven't gone through yet. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that Characteristics of Life assignment. I'm a student. I know nothing about CK-12. I just know that my teacher made an assignment for me in Google Classroom. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to open this up directly from Google Classroom. As a student, that's going to load that entire lesson in my browser. And I can go ahead and work my way through the learning of this. You'll see here, instead of the assign button, I have a turn in button at the top there. In some of our science content, you'll even see a little help person that I can kind of ask a question for if I need some assistance. And I can work my way through this lesson. I'm going to get a really low time frame on this because I'm just skimming through this and not paying much attention. I could check out a video, work my way through that. Maybe check out another video, try the link to see that, explore some other pieces. And then as the student, I'm going to start this practice. So here it says get 10 correct to complete your practice goal. So I can go ahead and I can start practicing. And we can see the plants use energy from the sun to make their food. So if I get this correct, it's going to give me that point value. I don't have a skill level determined yet. Let's try a cell. We're good so far. Now I'm gonna randomly put in something like this because I have no idea, even though it gave me some options. It's gonna let me try again, and I'm just gonna go from here. Still got it wrong. Go ahead next. So you'll see now I have a skill level for exploring. And I can start putting in different answers as I go. And that will adjust up and down. If I'm being successful, it'll give me more challenging questions. If I'm struggling, it will give me easier questions. That's where that level of question comes in. And if I really am struggling, it will actually stop and give me a recommendation as I go through. And a lot of our questions have hints, so I can click on the same little thing and it'll give me my hint here, and I'm good to go. So I'm gonna stop for now, just so that I can submit that score. And you'll see now I can see my report. It reminds me that I can keep practicing because I've only hit 30% of my practice goal and my skill level is still developing. I've only spent a minute on here. And it tells me that my answers to missed questions are available after that due date. So once again, I can see the incorrect answer. And this is science, so it actually gives me a chance to go to the paragraph that I probably want to check out and try from here. So you'll see this flashing green dot that says, you missed this question. And I can go ahead and reread this thing, and that might help me answer that question and get that question right next time. And so you'll notice the stable learning environment, probably that homeostasis option there. So it gives me all of that information, and I can go ahead and click turn in. Now, it tells me that I'm turning in a score of 30%, so I can cancel and go back and try some more, or I can click turn in. I've now submitted this, so if August 10th rolls around, it's gonna freeze my score at 30%. If I hadn't done any work, it would give me a chance to submit it once after that date. And so now if I go back to my class on Google, I can close this window, and it says it's graded, and I got a 30 out of 100 there. So you wanna make sure that students, let's go ahead and open up another one. So let's say we open this one. They don't wanna use the mark as done. That's Google's own internal piece. They wanna make sure to use that turn in button that I just had. So if they accidentally mark something as done, they can unsubmit that and then turn in via CK-12. And that's what's gonna give their score sent to your report, as well as show up in that class report if you open that piece. Lindsay, how are we doing?
I'm busy typing answers to questions, so I wasn't really able to see what you just demoed. Some things that we have lined up here. Again, do I create a class on CK-12 in order to use these tools, or do I just run it through Google Classroom? I think Katie has said it several times. If you are a Google Classroom user, use Google Classroom. Do not create classes on CK-12 as well. That will just confuse the system.
Looks like we have an engagement score component. They saw, if you noticed on the one I just did, so let's see the one that I just turned in, it was characteristics of life here. If I open that up, I can see my score report, and I can see that flashing green dot that tells me that paragraph is something I want to review. But in terms of the time spent or where that was spent, or, oop, that looks like it's Plix. I labeled that accordingly. I should have been paying more attention. This one, characteristics of life. So this is turned in. Here I can see my score report, and I can see the paragraphs I need to review. And those paragraphs show up for you as a teacher as well for insights. So if you ever see a flashing green dot like that, go ahead and check it out when you're looking at the insights on which students might need to review that paragraph. So here I can see turn in again, and under, oops, they don't see that insight option. They can continue practice and they see all of these pieces, and then they see that green dot, if I can find it again. There it is. So the time spent and the engagement is available for you as a teacher in Insights.
Okay, I think somebody was asking about insights they saw on the presentation earlier, that it may have been a preview of what's going to be released. Our insights are getting smarter and smarter by the second. And so pretty soon you're going to be seeing specific insights related to, you know, how a group of students performed. So anyway, so if you saw a preview of something that hasn't quite made it to the live report yet, just sit tight. Our insights are improving. Katie, suggestions for using with students who need accommodations?
Sure. So I would say there's a couple components in here. One is the practice that's available here. So this is the student piece. I'm actually going to swap over to a teacher part so we can show you some other options as we go through. But when you're making these assignments, you can create separate assignments for particular students by simply editing that assignment within Google Classroom and picking the students that need additional components or that need a different quiz than another student there. So that's one piece. The other thing you could work with is down at the bottom for students that are struggling with English. We have our select language option, and you can convert the core text in a lesson into another language. We generally recommend that a student using that uses a separate tab to kind of view that piece, or maybe does it on their phone, because they would want to kind of close that before they do their practice and their work. So it's reading one clean screen and their practice. But that might help for students that are doing that. I know other teachers have used extensions with text-to-speech options. So there's kind of all sorts of different ways. And then our regular practice is adaptive all on its own. So this view practice option right here, it's going to adapt and adjust based on students. And then I know someone was asking about seeing that level of students all in one shot. So if I look at insights, and it looks like I opened this from CK-12, so I need to go ahead and open this from within here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. If you want your insights for a Google class, you need to make sure that you open it from that Google class. So let's go ahead and go back to here, look at our classwork, and I'm going to open up one that had practice. Once again, I'm opening from this link. And in here, I will see the different quick kind of levels of pieces. So that's a great overview for you as a teacher in terms of seeing which students might need more assistance. So that toolbar and insights. So if you have 60 kids in a class, we color coded it for you. So students that are proficient get light green, students that have mastery are dark green, students with developing are yellow, and then it works its way down to red for students that are struggling. So that's a really quick overview. I recommend using the insights for those labels because the score report includes kind of the core piece. But that's another thing to keep in mind. And then those flashing dots and other components are already built into the system to address other areas where students might be struggling. Looks like we have one about those paragraph recommendations. As a teacher, let's go ahead and open that for you. So that was a new assignment on characteristics of life. I'm going to open this lesson from within Google Classroom. And I am going to then access the same insights. And for that particular student who's already submitted it, so I can see here, I can preview this assignment or I can view the whole report. So this is an option at this point in time. So if I click on preview assignment, and that literally went live today, so that's why it's just showing up right now. So you can see here, I want to preview the assignment and I want to click on the insights piece here. And then that Jumpstart student is the only one that has turned it in. And so from here, I can go ahead down and I can actually see that same flashing green dot. So you guys actually got the newest, most recently released component within our system to make it easy for you to access class reports and insights right from that link if you forget where to find it elsewhere.
Katie, there's been a lot of chatter in the Q&A and chat about people are wanting to have the student view. And I know that you showed a student view earlier, but there's conversations about creating a dummy student account to be able to act as a student. Like, do you have any best practices for how people should be handling this?
I mean, you can see here that I have a student account that I've used that I just accessed that Jumpstart student so that I could see both pieces. That gets a little complicated with district components because districts would have to create that account to be within a district email address that would then be able to access your matching classroom. So I know in general, if you think about this, remember what the student saw. The student saw this exact lesson, and instead of view practice, they saw you have a preview button, they saw start. Instead of assign, they saw turn in. So for the most part, you're seeing exactly what a student would see. The biggest difference is kind of the way that they would access work within Google Classroom because your class has who's turned stuff in, whereas they just have the link to that assignment. So there's probably not as much need as you really think there is because except for the call to action options within here, that is what you're gonna see as a student as well.
Okay, we had a request if you could show how to find the teacher unit plan, lesson plan, assessments book. Says I can find the Kid Flex book, but not the actual teacher one.
Okay. This is partly dependent on the type of lesson you're looking for. So if you are working within a science flexbook and you go to the first section of any lesson and click on the resources up here in the toolbar, you'll be able to access the answers for that piece. That's something that's available for you or for those that are self-studying. So if you're concerned about that, I highly recommend using the digital practice versus kind of the review questions that are in here. So that's one thing for our newest science books. For our newest math books, if I click on subjects and then any of our math books here, you can actually see the teacher's edition right here. So I can click on other versions, access that teacher's edition. Below that were standards alignments, all sorts of different pieces. So this teacher's edition has more information in it in any particular lesson. I can see the learning objectives and agenda, more information, all sorts of different resources there. We do have some older flex books. If I look at kind of the flex books here and search under pieces with just kind of, I would say more like printable tests and different pieces, but we recommend that you use our newest content for the most interactive and engaging and adaptive components.
Well, you're right there, Katie. Someone was just asking about finding specific flex books from certain states. So we recommend going to the schools page is a great place to find other content. It kind of geotags. It thinks Katie's in Vermont. And you
pretty
can
close to that border, so
close enough. But she's selecting Texas. You could scroll down. We've got a great partnership with El Paso Independent School District, and for instance, you can see all the books that they've customized and then created from scratch and put on our site. So you're welcome to use any of these books that our partner districts around the country and world have put on the site.
Great. So we have this question about Flexbooks for grades 3 through 5. For math, we have practice and videos, as I said, but under the same schools page, a district that just did some great work on that is actually in California. So if you look at California and you go down, you can even search Merced and it will jump you right down to the Office of Education there. And this is a county that has 22 districts in it, I believe. And they've actually created grade 5, grade 4, grade 3 math, and then kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2. And in those lessons, you can go ahead and open it up. You can pick a topic, and they have some core content. They might have a video included. In this case, they put a Khan Academy video in here. They have some practice attached there. If we go back to their page, we can see different options. I think as they work their way up, some of their other content even has attached practice. They made their own kind of quizzes and practice or pulled our practice in. And you can see different pieces. And every single one of these, it has some related content. It has a core lesson, got some practice there. I can assign these just like I can assign CK-12 content to Google Classroom and go from there.
Let's see. Will this be a great supplement for homeschoolers? Absolutely. We have homeschool students using this. We have people remote learning, in-class learning, any sort of hybrid learning situation. So use us for full curriculum or to supplement. That's great. Is CK-12 different from a Flexbook CK-12? A Flexbook is just one of our offerings. One of the things that CK-12 does in addition to the adaptive practice and simulations and Plix and other resources.
We had a question about printing practice. So if you have offline needs, under practice, you can download a worksheet for practice, do the same thing for a quiz. If you have a custom Flexbook, you actually, under the same toolbar, you could download this PDF. So this is one that is a customized Flexbook. I can download that. You will lose the interactivity and the auto grading, so keep that in mind. That's something to have there. There's a question about standards. So under Explore for NGSS, this will link you to our content. We have middle school and high school NGSS standards here included. I can pick any one of these, pick a standard, go to non-metals, and we'll see content. This will get you to the concept page. I actually kind of recommend that you then take this and say, okay, non-metals fits that. Let's see what we have on CK-12. And it actually shows up in our physical science book. So I might want to jump into the 2.0 lesson there. This is something that you can then check under the concept details and see any tags to standards correlation as you go as well. If you have created classes on CK-12 and you plan to use Google Classroom, please go in and delete those classes. You do not need them. And if you wanted to do that, you just go to your class, which you can access from here. You'd open up any class that you have here. So let's say our Winter 2020 class. And under settings, there is the option to hard delete this class. So anything that, I only recommend doing that if there's no work done in there, because otherwise you're going to lose all your reports. So, but if you created classes because you thought you needed both, go ahead and remove those from CK-12 so you don't confuse yourself, and you're good to go. And then some questions about resources. So our certified educator program, we're relaunching this week, so keep an eye out for that. That's self-paced. It has 10 lessons you can work your way through. Our alumni are amazing, and a lot of them actually have direct links where you can email them. You can filter by location, so you can find people near you. And if they have a little logo right there with a mail, you can click on that and email them directly. So reach out to others or reach out to us if you have questions.
Katie, I think we're gonna call it quits on the questions for today. If there are still any unanswered questions, just know that you can reach us at support@ck12.org, and we would be happy to get back to you. I hope that you learned something today, and we would love to see you on a future webinar. Thanks so much for joining us.